YouTube, what is good? Welcome back to another video. Now this video is something that a lot of people have been asking for. They asked me, how did I become an owner operator step by step? So I'm pretty much about to explain that to you in this whole entire video. But before we get started, man, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Really trying to take over this YouTube platform. Also, if you're not a subscriber and you're a new viewer, please subscribe, man. You go into like my content, I guarantee you. And also drop a comment, man. Let me know your thoughts, give me some ideas, just some feedback, motivation, whatever, man. Drop it in the comments below. Now let's get right into this video. So a lot of people want to know how I became an owner operator step by step. And the thing about trucking is that everybody has a different story and everybody has a different way that they, get their truck, build their business, and just, experience success. So I want to tell you exactly what my story is and how I got to this point that I'm at, just step by step. So if you watch my YouTube videos, then you know that I went to CDL school in 2019, October, I believe. I finished in November. I got my CDL in November. My dad was already in the trucking industry for like 3 years, and he was driving for a small carrier in Arizona. At the time, the CEO of the company only had about 10 trucks. So my dad told me, listen, if you get your CDL, I got a job for you. I already talked to the owner, and he said if you pass the test, don't worry about the experience. I'm gonna be the one that train you, and you're gonna be good. You're gonna make good money. So I said, all right, cool. So once I finished, I started training with my dad in November. It was actually my birthday, November 6th. We started training November 6th of 2019. Me and my dad team drove for 3 months all the way up until February of 2020. In February of 2020, me and my dad was actually on the road, and my dad was saving up his money and, planning to get his own truck. In February 2020, he found a company that was just too good to not try. And just understand, I am going to make a complete separate video about how I got my truck, what I spent on my truck, where I got my truck from, just everything, what the requirements were, what's the name of the place, everything in a separate video. So don't comment on this video asking where I got my truck from, because I'm going to make a whole entire video on it. I keep saying that in the comments. I'm going to make a separate video. Like, I'm sharing the information. I'm giving out the keys. I'm giving out the game. Just let me do it how I do it. All right. So don't comment asking where I got the truck from, because I'm going to make a video on it. Understand that. So, moving on. My dad got his truck in February of 2020. I saw his whole entire process. I saw how he got the truck, where he got the truck from, how much he needed to get the truck. So in my mind, I just started calculating, like, okay, cool, like, this is what I'm gonna have to do. So it helped make my vision even clearer, because I didn't get into trucking to be a company driver. I got into trucking to build a fleet. At the time, I thought I wanted a fleet. I don't want a fleet of trucks anymore. I'll make a separate video on why I don't want a fleet of trucks. But moving on. So my dad got his truck, and I started driving the company's truck, making 45 cents per mile. At 45 cents per mile, I just saved my money. I don't have no kids, no wife, no real bills, no house, nothing. So I just started saving up my money. After 10 months of saving up my money, I went to the same place that my dad got his truck, and I got a truck from them. And I wasn't ready at the time to start my own authority. I was just ready to get a truck. So I asked the CEO of the company if I could lease my truck under him. And when you lease your truck under somebody, you don't have to go through the process of starting up a new MC. And at the time, I wasn't ready. I didn't have no information. I didn't know if the truck was going to, make it on the road. I didn't know anything about trucking, really. Like, I just knew, how to drive the truck, but I didn't know the business side of it. So I was really just taking a leap of faith. So he allowed me to lease my truck under him, but I told him that I didn't want to drive the truck. And I told him I wanted to find a driver. but I didn't ask him how to find a driver. I didn't ask him really anything pertaining to helping me. I just was doing my research and I figured out how to do all of these things on my own. I just needed him to allow me to lease onto him and I would do everything else. So when I got my first truck, I didn't actually drive that truck. I didn't drive that truck at all. And the reason that I did that is because I didn't want the first truck that I bought to be the one that I drove, because I didn't want to get comfortable in that truck, because the money from that truck would have made me comfortable and I wouldn't have been motivated to get a second truck. So when I got that first truck, I actually found a driver while I was at a delivery. And it's crazy how it worked out, because to this day, that's the hardest delivery I ever had to make. It took me over 2 hours to park in a dock. And that's how I met my driver, because it was taking me so long to park that he started to help me. And when he started to help me, I'm like, yo, you young as hell. Like, how old are you? He was only 22. So that was like relatable, because a lot of truck drivers are older. So we started talking. He followed me on Instagram. We exchanged numbers, and then he bought my book. We kept in touch. And I asked him, like, yo, this is how much you can make, because he was only a local driver at the time. He knew he had his Class A CDL, but he was driving a day cab, not a sleeper. But he eventually wanted to go over the road. He just didn't start over the road. So I asked him, like, yo, I told him, like, listen, I got a truck. This is how much money you gonna make. This is how we gonna do it. You wanna come work with me? I'm gonna put you in a position to, get your own truck. So I trained him for 3 weeks. He finished training in November, like the last week in November, he finished training. In the 3 weeks of training, I just drove in the truck with him, and we pretty much like team drove. But he's from California, and he never drove in any other state, never drove in, different weather conditions. So that was pretty much like the biggest adjustment. So I taught him how to drive in the mountains. I taught him how to drive in different cities, taught him what to look for, and just like explain like what the difference was between over the road and local. But it wasn't hard to train him, because he already knew how to park. He already knew how to check in. He already understood what like bill of ladings were and things like that. The biggest difference was just transitioning from, just driving in one city to driving over the whole entire country. So like I said, the first truck I got, I didn't want to drive that truck, because I knew I got in this game to not drive trucks. I got my CDL so I didn't have to drive trucks in the future. I wanted to learn as much as I could in the beginning, so when I do transition, it's like a very smooth transition. I don't care about making all the money. You know what I'm saying? I knew that I would have made more money driving that truck myself, but it's like I'm going to benefit in the long run if I learn how to hire a driver, and I learn how to train a driver, and I learn how to buy a truck and put a driver in it. So after 3 weeks, I went back to driving the CEO of the company truck. But instead of making 45 cents per mile, I started getting 27% of each load. And I also got the opportunity to book my loads, which is how I started learning how to book loads. And the way I learned how to book loads was just watching YouTube videos. I never asked anybody to show me how to book loads. I never, I never talked to the owner and said, listen, can you teach me how to book loads? Like, no, I took initiative. That's what success is. Success is about taking initiative. All of these things that I've done, I did this on my own. Like, I didn't ask anybody to help me find a driver. I just went and I found a driver. And it took a little bit of creativity. I didn't ask anybody, to teach me how to train a driver. I just took initiative and did it myself. I never asked anybody to get a truck for me. I just did it myself. I never asked, anybody, nothing that I'm doing. I just did all of these things myself. And that's what people have to understand. If you want to be successful, you have to learn how to take initiative and do research yourself. And then once you get the information from the research, then you apply it. So after training him and after going back to company driving, but I was making 27% of each load, it opened my mind up, because I saw like, wow, I can make this amount of money from a truck. And also within our company, we have a dispatcher. And having a dispatcher makes it a lot easier, because all I had to do was worry about the truck maintenance. I didn't have to book the loads. I didn't have to send the rate cons. I didn't have to do the carrier setups. I just had to tell the dispatcher, look, I want my truck to make this amount of money. These are the routes that I want him to run. Make it happen. And that's what the dispatcher does. The dispatcher is pretty much like the quarterback or the coach. They set up all the plays. and they, you know, put the drivers on routes. So the dispatcher was working directly with my driver, and I really didn't have communication with my driver. I didn't book my driver's loads. I was only worried about booking my loads, which allowed me to focus. When you run a business, you don't want to be the one doing everything. And that's what I learned with trucking. You know, at first I was trying to book his loads, book my loads, but it just didn't work like that. It was too much. So when you build a business, what you're doing is you're creating a system that operates without you having to perform all of the functions. And that's what trucking has really taught me. And then also trucking has taught me teamwork, because you need a team. Teamwork makes the dream work. You can't want to make millions of dollars if you want to do it all alone. If you're going to make millions, you need a team to make millions. So after, I would say, 2 months of driving the company's truck, and after like 2 months of having a driver in my truck, I then called the company back and got a second truck. And then that's when I actually became an owner operator, because I'm like, okay, I already have a driver. I already see how much money he's making and how much money I'm making from him driving my truck. Now I'm going to be an owner operator and then make even more money. And then my first truck or my second truck is going to help pay off my first truck. So that was pretty much my whole entire mindset. So I got a second truck, and then I leased it under the same company instead of starting my own authority, because I want to just focus on one thing at a time. I want to focus on knowing, you know, just the numbers of a truck, knowing how to book loads. You know, the less that I focus on, the better I'm going to be in the long run. Because if I try to rush and, you know, I try to bite off more than I can chew, then I'm going to lose in the end. So I was literally just taking step by step. And then I tried to get a third truck, but it just didn't work out. Like, I sat back and I started to like assess everything and say, you know what, let me not try to, you know, run before I can even walk, or I just started walking, why am I trying to run? So pretty much my situation is a lot different, because, you know, I had a lot of support around me. I had mentors, I had information, but even though they didn't spoon feed me, I knew how to seek out information. So pretty much how I became an owner operator: I got my CDL. I started training with my dad for 3 months. After training with him, I became a company driver. After being a company driver, I went and bought a truck. After I bought the truck, I leased it under the company that I was driving for. Instead of driving that truck and becoming an owner operator, I found a driver on the road at a delivery. I asked him if he wanted to come work for me. He said yes. I put him in that truck. I paid him 45 cents per mile. Then after him driving the truck and me seeing how the truck did, like with maintenance, expenses, you know, things like that, then 2 months after that and driving the company's truck, I decided to get my own truck, and then I became an owner operator. And then, you know, in 6 months or less, I'm going to find a driver for the truck that I'm in, and then I will no longer be driving trucks, and then I'm going to expand and branch out and become more creative and just follow my other dreams that I have. So that's pretty much like a breakdown, step by step, how I got to this point that I'm at now. And now I'm documenting, now I'm, you know, doing YouTube. So people was asking this question. I've seen this question a lot of times. So I just wanted to give you a breakdown step by step on how I became an owner operator. But just understand, a lot of companies won't let you lease under them unless you have 2 years of experience. 2 years of experience. A lot of dealerships won't let you get trucks for them unless you have 2 years of experience. So I understand that my situation is a lot different. And that's the thing. When something is meant for you, there won't be any resistance, because God set it up to happen that way. So I knew that everything that was happening for a reason. And then also, I brought value to the CEO of the company. You know, I brought him over 5 drivers. You know, I brought him information that he didn't have before. I brought a certain type of energy to the team that wasn't there. So he gave, you know, me a little leeway. Now, I wouldn't even say leeway. He allowed me to do things that he didn't let other people do and don't let other people do, just because of the amount of value that I bring to him. When you become a person of value, then people are going to treat you different, because not only are you benefiting from them, they're benefiting from you. So listen, if you made it to the end of this video, go ahead and like this video for the YouTube algorithm. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Also drop a comment. And then lastly, If you made it to the end, I really, really, really appreciate it, because like I say all the time, a lot of people not watching all the way to the very end. They're not watching the last second of the video. So the fact that you watched all the way to the last second of the video, you know, that goes a long way. You know, that just shows that you really support me, that you really enjoy my content. And it just motivated me to just keep making content and just keep being my authentic self. So again, man, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.